Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the American Fitbaw Cast. We are back after our bye week. We had a mid-season bye week, unfortunately enforced upon us, but sometimes these things happen. Back to the old Skype recordings of old, trying to keep Andrew involved while he's away on his hiatus from the secret bunker. Yes, but he unfortunately couldn't make it this evening. So we miss him dearly. But I do have someone else on the line, Mr. Miller.
We miss him dearly. That's a bold statement.
What?
I said we miss him dearly. That's a bold statement.
I was going to save the slag until we talked about the Cardinals later on. Yes, just the two of us this week, but as always, loads to talk about. Right, quick couple of shout outs before we get started. So I want to say welcome and thanks to Ali Gray, who started listening recently. Ali Gray from Edinburgh. He got the podcast recommended to him by a friend of ours, which was nice, and he has smashed through the whole back catalogue. So top guy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, mate. MVP caliber listener. That's what that is.
Rivals Kev.
Yeah.
They're the only two we know for sure have done everything.
Yeah, I think so.
A few other people. I'm assuming plenty more have as well. They just haven't told us yet. I also want to give a shout out to Mano from the Beyond the Arc NBA podcast. He he missed a few episodes. He was away, did quite a lot of traveling over the summer. He went out to Japan for the World Cup, the Rugby World Cup. So they kind of had a bit of a break through the off season for their NBA stuff. But they are back now that the NBA season is in full swing. So if anybody likes a bit of NBA basketball action, you should definitely check their podcast out. And just while we're on talking about other podcasts, quick shout out, a new podcast started this week called the Perth Podcast for anybody who lives in Perth and Kinross and surrounding area where we are based. So get that checked out as well. So on to the NFL stuff then. We'll do a quick quarterback roundup to start with, Gavatron.
We shall. Let's go for it.
Yes, so quite a lot of movement in the last couple of weeks. It kind of, I almost feel it's worse this season with the amount of quarterback movement that is happening, but you tend to find, we're at the midway point of the year now, so we tend to find a few teams that will then go, right, starters getting benched because we need to see what the other guys got, because their season's pretty much done anyway.
Mm-hmm.
One that, sorry, got to get it. So Cincinnati Bengals, right? They are winless. They're the only winless team left. They're sitting in 0-8. They had their bye week. They decided to bench Andy Dalton, who's always been kind of the bog standard mediocre quarterback ranking that everyone should kind of compare themselves against, in favour of Ryan Finley, just to see what they've got for the next 8 games. They benched him on his birthday. Thoughts, Gav? That's harsh, isn't it?
Yeah. I guess we were speaking about it. He gets a really hard rap, right? Like this season, I don't think any of the losses you can pinpoint and say it's his fault.
No. He was like second in yardage by the time they benched him, was he not?
Yeah, he's definitely, performing fairly well. He's still got turnovers, but there's so many things that go into a turnover, from a tipped ball to a receiver, not reading the path of the ball, or a cornerback just making a good play.
He's had no AJ Green all year.
Yep.
John Ross got injured.
Offensive line.
Week 1 or something.
Yeah, the offensive line's been beat up as well. So, I think there's a few things where, you can't just hold him accountable. The whole team has to be accountable.
Absolutely. I mean, the defense has been an utter sieve as well, which doesn't really help much.
No,
I don't think it's on him. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, you're totally right. As well, if the defense can't, make stops or make plays, it puts more pressure on him to actually make something happen. So it's difficult. And I think there's loads of teams out there that would absolutely take Andy Dalton right now.
So Andrew actually shouted about this in one of the NFL group chats a few days ago. He put a cheeky outside thought: how about Andy Dalton moves to the Bucks in the off season? and BA gives him a bit of a late career resurgence.
It feels like it could work. There's maybe some similarities with how Carson Palmer's career went. So, that's something that does make sense from that perspective. And BA likes to throw the ball about, and Andy Dalton, he's got a good arm. It's not like he's not got arm talent. It's maybe a little bit of, has he always had the best weapons? Has he suffered from just being a guy that's 6, 7 out of 10 every week because he doesn't put up the flashy sort of numbers? The playoff record, how much of it is down to him? He had a horrendous coaching crew for so long as well.
Did they go on? I think he's 0-6 on playoffs, 0-5 anyway. So they've made it. The Bengals as an organization, when Marvin Lewis was there, made it into the playoffs, but they were one and done every single time.
Yeah,
I'm with you. It's not all on Dalton.
Yeah, I was just thinking as well, like, how many teams would just be happy to get to the playoffs?
Nowadays, I mean, look at the Bills last year. Look how wasn't it the Bengals actually got them into the playoffs? Was
That's
that
right? Yeah,
2 years ago. So that was 2 years ago now, not last year. Yeah, and it was all to do with Dalton and the Bengals beating whoever it was they were playing in Week 17, which allowed the Bills to sneak into the wild card spot.
Yeah,
because there was a bit of a mass outpour from all the Bills fans to Andy Dalton's foundation. They donated nearly $1 million into his foundation.
What's
on a weird thing. Absolutely brilliant, yeah. Because I mean that's a rival fan base, but because they were so delighted that he got them into he got the Bills into the playoff, all the Bills fans just chucked loads of money his way. It was amazing. But they hadn't been to the playoffs for like 20 odd seasons or something nonsense before that. It was long overdue. Similar bit of outpouring this year. A lot of the Bengals fans, when Dalton got benched, actually there was a bit of a campaign started where they donated $14 each because he's 14's his shirt number.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what the total is, but I know that his foundation's had a bit of a massive boost recently as well. Yeah, again.
Yeah, that's good.
It is good. It's good for the fans to come out and say, you know what, thank you. It's almost them recognising the same thing, that it's not really always his fault.
Yeah, totally.
So, I mean, the season's done. They're already looking ahead to next year. They are in the absolute prime position now for the first overall pick. So they've got to kick the tires on Finley to see what they've got, because if they end up with the first overall, they can go with their new quarterback, if that's what they're going to do. Or if Finley turns out to be amazing, in the next 8 games, then they know they can just roll with him next year.
Yep, totally. I guess it's a difficult situation, but you understand why the Bengals have done it.
Yeah, business move. But also that makes me think that they're pretty well behind. What's the coach's name again?
Zach Taylor. Jesus, Steve.
I was going to say Sean McVay's protege, but I was like, well, I don't know if that really counts.
Yeah.
But the organization's obviously quite behind him and thought, right, we'll give you a couple of years. A bit like what Mad Shahid Khan, who I love to bits, does with the organization structure in Jacksonville. He doesn't like turning it over quickly. The Bengals, they kind of stick with somebody for as long as they can without the wheels coming off.
Do you see what you just did there, Steve? You just created a natural segue for yourself, talking about the Jags.
Well, there we go. I was going to leave them to the end, but that's fine. No, we'll go with the Minshew one. So this is the weird one. So we've got Minshew Mania, as it was. Gardner Minshew, 6th round pick, flies in for Nick Foles. Nick Foles gets his collarbone broken 11 plays into the season. Not even basically 5 minutes of game time, and that's him done. He's smashed his shoulder up and he ain't coming back. This unheralded rookie who nobody knew anything about really, well, certainly not over here because we don't get a massive amount of exposure to the college game, gets thrown in at the deep end, and by God did he pull out the stops. He did everything possible he could to win the job, and he was flying through week on week to the point that they were thinking, right, we've got a big problem when he comes back. I think we talked about this 2 weeks ago when we were last recording, did we not, about do the Jags have a Minshew problem? And until that point they did. The only thing that's kind of just almost like perfect luck timed, the London game they played, the Jags imploded. And unfortunately Minshew was a part of that problem. He had 3 series in a row where he went I think it was interception, fumble, and it was, and the game just ran away from them. And it was just like, talk about doing the worst thing possible at the worst time of your career. It was really sad to see. I felt so sorry for him.
Yep.
So Marone came out. He played the very diplomatic response, right? Well, we're going on a bye week anyway. I'll make my decision at who's because they knew that Foles was ready to come back after the bye week. So they were like, I'll make my decision. I'll find out. Well, did he not wait barely 2 days before coming in? Foles was a starter again, and they flipped that back round. But that aside, Minshew, I think, has done wonders. He will get another chance somewhere. Do you think, because obviously we talked about this last time, do you think they will try and move Foles in the off-season again, or do you think they will now try and ship Minshew for some draft capital?
There's one of those two players that aren't going to be there next year, for sure. To me, it makes sense to try and get rid of Nick Foles if you can, because of his contract situation. It allows you to be a little bit more creative in your free agency. But the challenge is how many teams are going to want to take that salary hit on Nick Foles. So Minshew might be an interesting proposition for some teams. I think Minshew, he had, in terms of since he started, this is the first time where we can say he's had a really bad game. Every other game, I think
he's really not flat. He was 18 touchdowns to 2 interceptions only coming into the London game.
Yeah, I mean, considering considering the Jags are 4-5 on their records, they've had all the Jalen Ramsey drama. Yep. So yeah, I think it's down to a head coach that's desperate to save his job, and Doug Marone. So I think that's the reasoning behind it. He thinks right now I'm in a better space with Nick Foles as my quarterback opposed to Minshew. When actually I think if you were trying to create yourself some sort of longevity, you could say to Shahid Khan, well, look what I'm doing with Minshew.
Yes.
This is a longer term project than what we thought Nick Foles was going to be. We've got the extra draft picks now with the Jalen Ramsey trade, so give me a little bit more time and I will get this right.
Yeah,
so
just give me next year minimum.
Yeah, so I think that Marone's actually shot himself in the foot, whereas if Foles flames out, or the Jags don't reach wild card or whatever, it's a lot easier to get rid of Doug Marone now.
Yep. The flip side, though, being if Foles takes them like really deep into the playoffs, he gets to sit there on his pedestal and go, I told you, I'm a genius.
Yeah. So big if.
I'm not 100% convinced. He had that one season in Philadelphia where he did something nonsense like 30 touchdowns to 2 interceptions for the whole season. It was just like ludicrous. And then never backed it up again. He was filling in for somebody.
Carson Wentz.
Was it for Wentz?
Yeah, it was when.
Oh no. I was thinking. No, you're right. I'm thinking way earlier in his career, but we'll not worry about that so much just now because I'm probably just forgetting about something else anyway. Usual stuff. The Jags and Foles and Minshew. So we'll see where that one shakes out. Minshew, bless him, he'll take it on the chin and he'll pick up the clipboard and he'll be ready to go again should anything else happen, or if the wheels come off and the Jags are out of it by week 15, I wouldn't be surprised if Marone at that point just goes, right, go on Gardner, on you go, take the last 2 games. Doesn't bother me anyway now because I'm done. Right, 2 long-standing quarterbacks that got put then on IR. One which we kind of knew about in a way because Cam Newton has been injured since week 2.
Mm-hmm.
I think with a bit of a dodgy ankle. He officially got shut down now because after a second opinion, they might need to do some more work on it. So whatever happens, whether they're doing work or whether it's rehab, he's unlikely to be ready, until way into the playoffs anyway. So there's almost no point in keeping him on the roster. So they've shut him down for the season. It kind of takes a lot of drama away from Carolina, and if he was to come back, what to do? Because in the meantime, Allen has filled in pretty well, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's it's the best thing that could happen for the Panthers just now because you don't. Kyle Allen's done a really good job. You don't need to upset that apple cart. He looks more than serviceable. Gives you time to think about what you do long term. I think it was the smartest move that the Panthers could have done. And also, you don't rush Cam back in and then he gets injured again because he's not ready. So makes sense. So I think in terms of the Panthers head office and Ron Rivera, they've done the best outcome they could have in that situation.
And it then gives them the opportunity as well to evaluate Allen for the rest of the season, and then they've got the same predicament that the Jags will have in the off-season about what they're going to do. They're in the same scenario. They either can move Cam on and go, right, I've got the old guy on the expensive-ish contract. He's actually not too ridiculous because I think he's due to be re-upped again soon. He's not in the massive, 35 mil a season bracket yet.
Yeah.
But he will be, if he hangs around. They've got to think about that a couple of years down the line. So they could get rid of that and move him somewhere else. If not, again, same scenario, they could decide to stick with him. They've got Christian McCaffrey in the backfield anyway as a massive 1-2 punch. The wide receiver core, Samuel and Moore, is it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
They seem to have come on pretty much leaps and bounds this season anyway. So actually, a long-standing issue with the Panthers, in my eyes, has always been their wide receiver core. Has not been amazingly flashy. That's been the part that suffered for them. So they now look like they've got some pretty legitimate options there. Yep. So they could decide to move on with Kyle Allen, and again the whole cheaper contract, better for the long. The same stuff we just said about the Jags applies equally to the Panthers.
Yep, and I think there will be maybe a bigger quarterback market than we maybe anticipated, or maybe than we first felt, because you've got the question marks with the Titans, question marks with the Raiders, question marks with the Bears. Then you've got the Bucks, you've got the Dolphins. Yep. That market is getting a little bit bigger, I think.
And the rookies coming in as well. There's a lot. There's going to be a lot. Is Eli going to move on and have another team, or is he just going to ride off into the sunset now?
Yep.
At the Giants. So there is so many. You're right. There's so many questions.
Phil Rivers,
Mason Rudolph. You got Phil Rivers at the Chargers. What's going to happen there? We'll speak about more of them in a second. You've got
Steelers,
Ben Roethlisberger, Steelers, and Mason Rudolph, who seems to be doing okay. I've not actually seen that much of the Steelers, to be honest, this season, so I'm a little bit ropey on it. That Minkah Fitzpatrick trade seems to have worked absolute wonders for them, though.
Yep.
They are fighting week on week and are nowhere near as bad as they were at the start of the season.
I think you nailed it there. I think that's more down to their defense rather than Rudolph pushing the offense along. So I think if you were to categorize or rank them, like Minshew, Allen, Rudolph together, Rudolph's down towards the bottom for me. So
but you still take him over like a Josh Rosen and
100%
based on what's been shown. Would you take, if Fitzmagic decided to come back for one more ride, would you take him over Mason Rudolph in free agency next year? Probably not. No, that's fine. So there is a few people could be floating around. You'll take him over Case Keenum. Case Keenum moves on. There's definitely people that are going to be struggling, I think. But I think there's going to be a lot. You're right. There's a lot of movement next off season. Do you think the other one that went on IR, Joe Flacco at Denver, could he be moving on, or do you think Denver will stick with him for one more season?
I think he just slides into the backup role and then retires. I don't
love it.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I'm surprisingly a Joe Flacco fan. I don't particularly know why. I think I just kind of like Dalton, where I feel like he just gets a really hard gig when, he's not a bad quarterback. He was at the Ravens when they were a bit of a mess. People have to remember that they changed their full scheme when they brought Lamar Jackson in. Prior to that, they were on the absolute down.
They were struggling.
So
he was like 5 years removed from his absolute wonder off season. I mean, that's what's kept him around for so long and given him the benefit of the doubt for so long, because that playoff run he did back in the 2012 season, and we think now we're now in 2019, so that's how long ago it was. It was ages ago now, but at the time it was lunacy. He went through the playoffs with, I don't know, unfortunately I can't remember the numbers, but it's like the most ridiculous passer rating that
Yeah.
20 points above what you should be playing at. He was banging touchdowns all over, like something nonsense like 12 or 13 touchdowns in the 4 games, no interceptions. It was just amazing what he was doing. But he's never quite got back to that same peak. But it gave him the benefit of doubt for a couple of seasons to go, oh, right, we'll give you more help on the wide receiver core, or they then had issues at running back and they needed to find someone there, or a couple of stalwarts in the offensive line then retired, Burke at centre, and somebody else went about the same time, and you were like, oh, that's leaky, so we need to get that fixed. There was always seemed to be a reason that wasn't really him. But you wonder more as time's gone on if they really should have moved them 1 or 2 seasons earlier.
Yeah, I think that's a tough one, isn't it? Until they knew what direction they were going to go, and the Ravens will say, "Well, what we done was the right thing for us. Now look at how we are now."
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, I do. I wouldn't be surprised. Generally, would not be surprised if the Broncos took another quarterback next season.
Yes. Oh, even if it's a free agent who to challenge in in training camp. Someone who's been kicked around a few teams, because John Elway's record, for all that he has done as a player, his record as a GM trying to find the answer at quarterback has been stinking.
Yep, totally. And I worry about having, so they picked Drew Lock in the second round.
Second round this year, yeah. He's been injured, which is the only good thing for him, I suppose. He's not really had a chance to show what he can do.
Yeah, so he's been injured, so that means that he's not had as many reps. He's not been as, he would have done a lot of the sort of theory, if you will, but none of the practical.
Yes.
But I always worry about putting a defensive-minded coach with a rookie quarterback. So I worry about Vic Fangio with Drew Lock and how that pans out. So I really wouldn't be surprised if the Broncos took someone else
next offseason. Yeah. So loads of quarterback movement. On to our second point of discussion this day. So the report recently, a couple of days ago, came out that the NFL was the word seriously considering or just considering potentially moving a team to London full time. Now, this has done the rounds for a while. There's always been a strong thread of thinking that the end goal for the London series would be a full-time franchise over here. And then the team that was linked to that was the Chargers, following their kind of not very welcoming start in Los Angeles in the last couple of seasons. I mean, the game against the Green Bay Packers, it was basically a Packers home game. The stands were solid green. Cheeseheads were everywhere. There might have been about 16, was it? I think you said in the chat, 16 Chargers fans.
Yeah.
They'll be upset if they move them, but so thoughts? Should they? If it's them, should they move?
Yes, they should move.
You're calling it. You're going straight in.
Straight in. I'm all in on it. And the reason being, right? So the Rams done some really smart things. First of all, they moved to the Coliseum where a lot of college games are played. So they would have got a little bit of support from the college fan base that know the area, etc., etc., etc. So there's already that little bit of a culture already there for them. The second thing they've done, when you put, so if you don't have an affiliation with a team, so there, in this case there was two teams that moved city that the locals did not really have an affiliation with, Rams and Chargers. You can pick the one that's hyper successful with a superstar head coach with all the sort of flashy pieces, one of the best defensive players, or you can go for the unfashionable Chargers that have got the aging quarterback that's about to go out the door with the superstar that's always injured, with a head coach that's quite hard to like in terms of his personality.
What a roundup. I love it.
And I'm sorry, Kev, I know you'll be listening, but I don't see how you can argue with that, really. And especially...
I don't think he's fussed, because he's quite looking forward to moving down to London way so he can go and see them. He'd be like, give me that season ticket. Chucking his money. Tropping up Wembley way going, brilliant. Thank you very much, Dean Spanos. I hate your guts, but I love your team.
The only thing that becomes difficult, though, right? The London games are fans of all teams. It's not a solid fan base of Chargers, or so you're heavily relying on people willing to switch allegiance. You might have people that support divisional rivals, or things like that. So there's still a big question mark over that side of it. How are you going to get 7 or 8 teams over, depending on how the schedule works? You've only ever done, 4? So
Done 4, but we do 4 in 5 weeks, and that's 8 teams that come over.
I suppose that's true.
I think the logistics are pretty well ironed out now. We're in the 17th season?
Yeah.
Has it been that long? Maybe only about 13 or something like that. Actually, 13. We're in a game like number 20 or something like that. They're doubling and tripling every season, or possibly more games than that. So I think they've ironed out a lot of those kinks.
Yeah, that's true, I suppose.
I say a lot of them, not all of them, because I think there's still not a consensus on when's best to travel over. Some teams come over early in the week and come here for the whole week. Other teams will fly in on the Friday and just stay for a couple of days. So there doesn't seem to be a definitive, everyone goes, right, actually, the best day to go is a Wednesday. So you've got a couple of days to adjust to the time zone and get prepped, or more often it's the team that flies in just on the Friday that wins. There doesn't seem to be an answer.
Yeah.
And find the way the NFL is, as soon as there's an answer to that, everyone will just do the same.
Yep, that's true. It's a tough one, I think. I do think the Chargers, the whole move to LA has not worked out for them one iota. And it's a shame. It is a shame, but
I was reading about the Inglewood Stadium today, and I don't have, unfortunately, the number, because of what I'd be interested to see in the Inglewood Stadium is how the personal seat licenses are selling for the Chargers games. Not so much the Rams, because I think, as you just pointed out, I think they've got enough of the fan base, or the beginnings of a fan base, that they can root there and sort that long term. But the Chargers being the second team in there, that were almost like the little brother that can share the stadium. To me, it doesn't seem like so. In New York, it's a bona fide shared stadium. And it's effectively a 50-50 split. The way it was set up, the funding for it was all 50-50, as far as I'm aware anyway, not knowing the complete ins and outs of it. But to me, it's very much a joint stadium, to the point that even all the shops, you just rotate the wall round. It's got like all the like in the shops, it's the Jacks I'm talking about, the Giants. Going to the Giants store, and if they get ready for the next week, all they need to do is just swing the wall back to front, and it's all the Jets jerseys. It's actually really clever how they've done stuff to make it really easy to switch between the two teams. I get the weird feeling that they're not doing that in Inglewood. I get the feeling it's Stan Kroenke is building it for his Rams, and he's like, right, how can I get some more money, help funding this? Tell you what, does anyone want to come and share my stadium? You only need to pay $1 a year rent, because that's all the Chargers will pay, $1 a year to rent and live in the stadium. So it's going to cost them nothing to play there.
Yeah.
But they had to give a contribution of something like $200 million and a cut of the personal seat licenses that they're selling is the deal. So Stan Kroenke is sitting there going, excellent, there's some money for absolutely nothing. But I wonder how much money that actually is.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Might be struggling. They will get all. Do you think this is I don't want to go too much off topic, because we can go down a rabbit hole sometimes. I know what it's like. When we used to come around the desk at work, and it was like an hour later, we're like, whoa, where's the time going?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was my lunch. Oh well.
I think you mean its secret location.
That's not work. Yeah, that one. Where's I going with that now? Personal seat licenses. That you'll know better because of your Pure Fitbaw Cast about the setup in the UK being totally different. So you've got a season ticket. Mm-hmm. That's different to a personal seat license. Do you think they could sell such a thing? I think you long term rent a seat in a stadium, and I wish I knew the number off the top of my head. I've only just thought about it now, otherwise I would have prepped this in advance. I think it can be something lunacy, like your family can buy a seat for like 10 grand, right? But you're guaranteed a ticket in that seat for, the rest of your life until you sell it on to someone else. I mean, it's daft numbers. We're not talking like $200 a season.
Yeah. So it's not like a 1 year rental like it is over here, because that's effectively what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know of any football teams or soccer teams that provide a season ticket for any longer than a 1 year period.
Yeah, so they don't do that at the minute. So that's a slightly different thing they'd have to consider as well. So just quickly going back to the logistics thing there. So you would have 8 teams traveling over, because the Chargers would have 8 home games. You would probably want to do them in blocks. I can imagine that the minute, the way this schedule would have to be, you'd probably kind of almost want to give the Chargers the slightly favourable schedule, as in you play 4 games at home, you go on a 4-game West Coast road trip, 4 games at home, 4-game East Coast road trip, or something like that, so that to limit the amount of travelling.
You also, I guess, one quick thing that popped into my head there, sorry, is you also have to have players that want to do that.
There's tax laws, that's totally different over here. Although if they get registered as non-domiciles, do you know what? Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But there is tax issues which people are going to have to worry about, and that's where likes of, say, Florida, that has no income tax in it.
Mm-hmm.
So players will quite happily go down to Miami, if the Dolphins are ever good, or Tampa or Jacksonville, because you know that the money you're getting, you don't have to, you don't have to chip a whole pile of it off and send it back to the government.
Yeah.
That's totally different over here as well, because you're technically, residing in the UK. Oh, God, yeah, there's a lot more to think about it.
I think we move on from this rabbit hole.
Yeah, let's move on for it. So you think, yes, they should move 100%. I've not gone through my complete ins and outs on why. I'm slightly more on the no side. I was in favour of a London franchise maybe 8 to 10 years ago when the games first came over in the very early days. But actually, with the way I feel about the NFL now, I don't think you can go global unless the whole league goes global at the same time. And it goes like a mass expansion. It's just like lunacy level. All of a sudden, half the teams vacate the US, and there's people flying in China, Japan, South Africa. I mean, we're talking literally global league. You put a couple extra bye weeks in to allow for traveling and rest. Some nonsense like that, I think, is the only way to make it work. So make it fair.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, as I said, we'll well down the rabbit hole, and we'll move away from that one for now. Kev, let us know your thoughts. Obviously, you're quite interested if it is going to be the Chargers moving. So yeah, let us know. Right. Point 3. Now, this is one that you wanted to raise about a certain young Baltimore quarterback.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask the question, will Lamar Jackson outperform Russell Wilson in terms of his career? I think it's quite a spicy question, because Lamar Jackson had, I wouldn't say a slow start, but the Ravens weren't set up to get the best out of him. Yes. They then made a whole bunch of moves to make sure they did get the best out of him, and we are already seeing some insane numbers from him. I think his rushing yards are complete next level. I'm sure he's broke all sorts of records already.
He overtook Michael Vick's most rushing yards through first 8 or 9 games or something this week as well. So he's already ahead of the all-time best rushing yardage total for a quarterback.
Yeah, that's just lunacy.
It's only his second season, isn't it?
Yeah, it's his second season, and the thing for me is the Ravens have got the capability to improve, and he's also got the ability to improve, because he still doesn't have great wide receivers. They've improved, they are better, but they're still not, next level. He doesn't have like for example, like an Antonio Brown in his prime, or a AJ Green, Amari Cooper, all these he doesn't have someone where you can be like, he's the guy. So yeah, I just wondered, like, the most comparable one is Russell Wilson in terms of their overall game, and I just wanted to get your take on whether you think Jackson has the ability to surpass Russell Wilson.
So this is, I'd say, it is a really interesting question, and the thing that makes me worry a little bit about this comparison is how Russell has moved and evolved his game over the years. So we'll come back to that in a little bit. If you take where they are at the same point in their career, there's actually quite a lot of, or I would say, quite a lot of evidence that you'd think, actually, Lamar Jackson will outstrip Russell Wilson dead easy. If they were both, if this was both year two of where they were in their teams, hypothetically, playing at the same rate, yeah?
Yeah.
At the minute, you'd be like, oh yeah, Jackson's the better of these two. Okay. Russell Wilson had great scramble ability. He'd had some pretty magic stuff, but he wasn't particularly known that well as a passer in his early days. And I don't want any Seahawks fans to rip me to shreds for that, because what he's done now is almost the opposite. He seems to have kind of slowly moved away from the running element of his game. His passing ability is going through the roof. He's on track for something nonsense like a passer rating in a season of 120. Rodgers, I think, is the only person that's ever had anywhere close to a good number. And I want to say that's something like 104.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking like he's only got one interception so far this season. He is gonna. So if I know it's hypothetical because we're halfway through, but if we take the halfway point and he doubles it, he's gonna obliterate some absolute nonsense numbers that have never been seen before for what a quarterback can do with the ball, both in passing touchdowns versus interceptions. So he's moved on and he's changed his game, and that's the bit that I'm not quite convinced about in Lamar Jackson yet, because obviously, year one, he came in halfway through, and as you say, the scheme wasn't really there to help him, and it was run, and the team was getting about 200 yards rushing a game between him and the running backs, but he wasn't doing much through the air. He was maybe only even trying 10 passes a game.
Yep.
They obviously then worked through the whole offseason, tried to scheme a lot around him. He had that amazing game, 5 touchdowns to start the season, but in hindsight, that was against the Dolphins. And what has he done since? I think he's only had a couple of games where he's passed twice.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the other games, he's mainly had one passing touchdown. It's been his rushing he's known for, and not so much his passing. So I think the smokescreen of the Dolphins game, because we talked about it after week one about, oh my God, he's actually managed to find his passing game. This guy is going to be lunacy good.
Yeah.
Like, dare I say it? At the point we were like, he could challenge Patrick Mahomes sort of level of nonsense, right?
Yep.
I'm nowhere near ready to put him to that level yet, because I'm not convinced that his passing game is good enough at the moment. If he develops it the same way that Russell Wilson does, though, and at least improves it to more than adequate, then there is a big debate of ultimately which two would end up with a better career. I'm slightly more in Russell Wilson's favour at the minute, but he's got more time on his side, and I think the team works better for him.
Yeah, I feel like Jackson will surpass him, which is
Gav's bold predictions go again.
I am going bold, because I think that the Ravens will be smart and give him someone that can win contested catches. They've got Hollywood Brown who can take the top off, but they don't necessarily have the possession receiver or the Adam Thielen slot type receiver.
Anquan Bolden, who they used to have, who you knew was money. If you just throw a ball in his direction, he will just beat down whoever he's trying to go and grab it against and come down with the ball.
Absolutely. And you know what?
Something like that.
He's had a couple of big tests recently, Lamar Jackson. So everyone was gushing about the New England Patriots defense.
Yep.
And
he made a mockery of them, didn't he?
He put them to the sword. He absolutely put them to the sword.
It was quite something.
And the thing was, his numbers aren't through the roof. He only had like 170 passing yards, but he was effective. He was used his mobility to his absolute advantage,
The defense got nothing against them in the end, really, did they? Nothing of note. Nowhere near the levels of what they'd done against every other team they'd faced this season.
Absolutely, and
they were on track for historical stuff.
Yeah, absolutely crazy numbers, and you know what? A lot of credit to them, but I think it speaks volumes for Lamar Jackson. He only got one sack in this game and no interceptions. So
that's all you can ask for.
Exactly. And you know what? The week before, or the last game that he played before that, was against the Seattle Seahawks, who are not easy to play against, especially in Seattle. And he'd done the same thing. He put them to the sword, only got one sack. So I think that at the rate of what Jackson's progressing, he will surpass Russell Wilson. And I'm going to put it out there that over their career span, and people can note this down, on the 6th of November 2019, Lamar Jackson will win more Super Bowls than Russell Wilson. I'm all in.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Bless him. Is the fact that he had, do you know what, actually one thing that might help with that, and I don't know if we talked about this, was after the Dolphins game, when they were asked about his passing, his first comment was, yeah, not bad for running back. He absolutely just threw it back in their face. But I think he plays with that bit of a chip on his shoulder. I think
absolutely.
I think he's annoyed that the media don't view him as an actual quarterback. And that's, if he can keep playing with that fire inside him, that's going to stand him in a really good stead.
Yep, that's a bit of the Aaron Rodgers chip on the shoulder.
Absolutely.
That has helped him. So yeah, I'm really all in on Lamar Jackson. I think he will be one of the greats. I really do.
Awesome. Right, so from one of the potential greats of the future to potentially the greatest record of teams for this season, the San Francisco 49ers now remain the last unbeaten team, 8-0. How far are they going to go?
I feel like I want to write them off, but I'm finding the reasons to write them off is harder and harder. And they've not had a super easy schedule. They've had a lot of close wins, tough games where they've sort of ground it out, or they've found a way to win. So yeah, I'm not sure if we can just say that this is just a sort of flash in the pan. It looks like they've really got their shit together.
Yeah, so I think you can easily call now they're good enough for a playoff spot. Right?
Oh, hands down.
And you probably could have called that after about win 4 or 5 in a row. You're like, oh god, they're going to actually cause a bit of havoc here. The bit that concerns me is, out of the next 8 games they've got, because they're obviously halfway through the season, the only 2 I can see as gimmies are they play the Falcons, which they're only 1-7 at the minute. The wheels are falling off in Atlanta, so they're already writing off this season and moving on to next year, I think. So you pick the 49ers against them. They play the Cards again, which is divisional, and you think they'll probably pick that win up there. They obviously then play the Rams, and that could be a bit hit and miss. Mm-hmm. But then they also have Green Bay's in the schedule.
Yeah,
I think Baltimore's in the schedule.
Yep. The Saints.
Saints, yeah, actually, Saints, and the other one is I get it's a
Seahawks.
Team that's who of course rematch against Seahawks, which you probably that's going to be a bit of a bloodbath. So I could only see looking at the schedule, 2 out of the last 8, so that would leave them on 10-6. So then you'd be kind of fighting for a wild card and on the outside looking in, playing wild card weekend, and then just kind of having to see how they go. I think there's the old adage, defense wins championships, which is kind of the one thing they've really got easily, in abundance.
Yep.
The bit that's maybe the unknown factor, I would say, would be, how is Jimmy G playing?
Yeah, I don't think they're there because of him. He had a good game against the Cardinals, but who doesn't?
Yes. Now, there you go. And that's the bit that's the unknown. If he played as good as he did, when they went 5-0 to end the season when the trade after the trade went in, and then he got injured, so that was the bit that kind of put him back, and he just doesn't quite got back to where he was before the injury, where everything was firing all guns. So I don't know, but the running game, I mean, you're coming into winter where passing almost takes a little bit of a back step anyway, and decent ground teams will do traditionally a little bit better, especially if you get cold weather outdoor games. And then that defense is just going to cause havoc anyway. So I think they've got a chance of maybe getting as far as divisional. I don't know if they're going to get past that. I think there's too many other good teams that will, when it comes down to it and we're in playoffs and you get the old heads, the likes of a Drew Brees and the Saints, or Russell Wilson and the Seahawks when they hit playoff time, or Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay. Yeah, those teams, I think they'll just eat them alive because it'll be the 49ers' first real postseason run with this team. Yeah, they made the Super Bowl, but that was 7 years ago now, and the way the rosters churn over, I don't even know in terms of holdovers. They'll likely only have maybe one Joe Staley at tackle. Yeah. Maybe one other player left on the roster from then. Literally, the entire team will have flipped over by then, and the coaching staff. Mm-hmm. So they don't have much to rely on of people that have been there before.
Yeah. Yep, you're right. I guess the other thing that's maybe goes against them is they had a very early bye week. So
week 4.
5, I think it was week 4 or 5.
Yeah, they only played a couple of games and then they had a week off. So then they had to run every single week after that. So you might up you get. They just lost Quan Alexander. Yeah,
that's a big blow. I think if you start to lose the ability to attack people from your defense in different ways, or if the players are not as effective as they're more banged up with the more things that they're going to pick up. I think I do feel like I've written them off so many times this season that the record's going to fall off, that I don't want to keep saying it because they always just seem to find a way to make it work. It's a really interesting one, but you're right. Their schedule's tough. Their players are going to be fatigued, you would imagine. But it's just this weird, they find a way to get it done. And obviously, adding Emmanuel Sanders seems to have worked out really well. He seems to have got an instant rapport with Jimmy G. So, and then you've got George Kittle. So they've still got some players that can make things happen. But yeah, it's a really interesting team, and a lot of credit has to go to what's their GM called again? I forget his name. Is it John Lynch?
John Lynch, yeah.
Yeah, so he deserves a lot of credit for the things that he's done. There's never been any rumblings about Shanahan being in danger, even when they were crap.
It just seems to have kind of stuck with him and given him plenty of time and just take the sort of old school, longer tried and tested route.
And right now, you would say that it's working out for them.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one.
Mm-hmm. Right, let's round up with predictions then. Time is, but no surprises getting on because me and you like a good natter when it comes to NFL. So last time out, predictions wise, we all got absolutely nothing. So let's just quickly gloss over that and move on to this week then. So just the numbers before we go. I am still bottom with 7 games right so far. Andrew is 1 ahead of me on 8. Gav, you're racing out in lead with 12 correct picks so far. So yeah, I've pretty much got almost no chance of catching you already, even though we're only halfway through the season.
You need to run the table.
Yeah, it's a bit like fantasy, but we'll not talk about that either. Right, so games this week then. Let's go with Cardinals at the Buccaneers.
Cardinals at the Bucks. BA revenge. BA.
Yes. You think BA's going to get it? Yeah. I think I'm on that side as well. Albeit they've got our favourite guy we've talked about this year in the podcast. I have to say, we should almost maybe rebrand it the Jameis Winston podcast because that poor guy, he gets chatted about nearly every episode. They've got a super erratic quarterback, which is causing havoc. but I kind of know what you mean. Well, Bucks are at home as well, so you've got to have the Cards on the road. The Cards defense, and particularly the secondary, can't seem to stop anything. They're having an absolute nightmare. They're allowing something like 110 passer rating against opposing quarterbacks. You shouldn't be really. You want to try and get that below 90.
Yeah.
It is a good game, and that's as an average. So that means they've had some games where quarterbacks have been passing for way better numbers than that.
Yeah.
So yes, the Cardinals' offense is okay. So yes, I think they'll put points on the board, but I don't think their defense is good enough to stop the Bucks from putting more points on them.
No,
So I think I'll go with a Bucks VU. Andrew has decided to go with his Cards, which makes perfect sense. I don't think he would normally go against them, but we wouldn't pick a game where it would be easy for him to go against them anyway.
Yeah, I think this is a Chris Godwin game. I'm going to say that he puts up some crazy numbers.
Of course, so Godwin and Mike Evans the two of them are in the top 5 for passing yardage this season.
Crazy.
Sorry, as in receiving yards. Sorry.
Yep.
But yeah, so yeah, they could probably pad those numbers out quite healthily this weekend.
Yep.
Right, the Thursday night game. Now, this is a really intriguing one. So you've got the Chargers at the Raiders. So this is the Raiders' first home game in about 6 weeks. They went on a 5-game road trip, and had the bye week as well. But they did have a home game in that, but technically that home game was in London. So they've been away. I mean, they've travelled like half the globe or something. Yeah. It's been ludicrous. Yeah. So their bye week was well needed, and they've had that, and they now come back for a Thursday night game at home to the Chargers. What do you think?
I'm gonna go Raiders. The Raiders. Yeah. I think they've had some difficult games. So losing to the Texans, losing to the Packers, that's not anything to be upset about. Those are two good teams when you're on the road. A pretty good win against the Lions, and I think Old Man Rivers is on the way out. So I think that this is going to be a Raiders win. And yes, that was for Kev.
I did wonder, because that's more than once you've called out Phil Rivers. he's gonna fly over here with his army of 9 kids and his missus and sort you out. Imagine that, they've all got a baseball bat.
Pregnant.
Oh no. You should make me laugh. I've got a bit of a chest infection. It's not good. Oh, right, hold on. Right, calm myself down. Right. Oh, bless. Sorry, Kevin. Right. I know any other Chargers fans that we have. Let's not just pigeonhole poor Kev by himself. We probably have more than just him. But I'm unfortunately kind of going to echo your sentiments there, as in I don't think the Chargers will be able to go into Oakland and win. So what Oakland have done so well this year is the offense they've put in around Derek Carr. His completion percentage this season has been something daft, like 72, 73%. Just to give a bit of context on that for people that don't quite know the numbers very well. If you're hitting 60, you're doing okay. If you're hitting 65, you're above average. So 60 to 65 is your kind of benchmark you want to aim for. He's on 72, 73 or something. He's nearly 10% ahead. Hardly anything he throws doesn't get caught. Put that, so that's helping out the offense, so that you're not chucking away interceptions, you're not imploding in games, you're not throwing the ball away, you're not wasting many possessions. Josh Jacobs has been an absolute revelation. Getting him at pick 27, that's just, that's such a slam dunk, it's not even funny. So you've got that to rely on as well. He's already got the Raiders rookie record for rushing halfway through the season. He's not too far out of the actual proper rushing title, in terms of total. I mean, he's not going to get it because the likes of CMC and whatever ultimately will beat them to the punch. But he's holding his own for what they're doing so far, and that is just amazing to see.
Yeah.
The only thing that gives me ever so slight worry, and that's why I know Andrew's put this as a game, and why it's made it way more competitive, is the Chargers pitched up last weekend as a complete game. Melvin Gordon was back, banged in a couple of touchdowns. They got that running game together, which helped then free up Phil Rivers in the passing game, which they haven't really had much this season. Early on in the season, I think Eckler gave them that for the first game, maybe bits of the second game, but then the wheels came off in the rushing game, which meant teams could go against them dead easy and go, right, it's just up. Just got to shut Phil Rivers down because no one can do anything else against us, which kind of then where they went on their loss streak. But they seem to have flipped themselves back round into a normal offense again now, which is quite good. The defense, Ingram and Bosa, seem to be on a tear again now as a 1-2 on the defensive ends. Which they've not had so much at the beginning of the season, but the last couple of games, the two of them have been really on fire again as well, which has flipped them back into exactly where they were last season when they went 11-5, I think was the record last season, and into the playoffs. And I was going to say quite deep, but I think they got past the wild card round and then got destroyed.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, it was so that's. If that's the version of the Chargers that are now going to play for the rest of the season, the Raiders are going to have a bit of a problem because their defense is really going to have to stand up. And I don't quite know if they can handle a completely on-game Chargers. But the way they're playing this season, if we assume that's a bit of a blip and they're only playing good every now and again, they're on course for then a normal-ish game and the Raiders will probably win.
Yep.
So we'll see. Andrew actually called the Raiders as well. He was for them. So all three of us are going that way. Last game this week then, Vikings at the Cowboys.
Ooh.
Ooh. Yeah, exactly. Ooh.
I'll
go first while you're thinking because I already kind of know where I'm going with this one.
Yep. Sorry, what did you say? Are you going to go with yours?
Yeah, I was going to go first. Yeah, because you were pondering. I think the Vikings are going to go into Gerard's world and tear it apart.
Okay.
To the point of, I don't even think it's going to be a close game. I think the Vikings are going to waltz in there and cause some absolute havoc and blow them out. I think the Cowboys are, for whatever reason, the season is almost in free fall now. I don't know why. I don't know what's going wrong. They started off so well. You know, Dak was calling for his $40 million a season. After 3 weeks of the game, you're like, hurry up, pay him his $40 million now. Otherwise, we get to the end of the season, it's going to have to be 45 or 50. And the wheels have just come off.
Are we talking about the same team?
Cowboys.
Yeah,
they won last week.
They won their last two games with 37 points on the board against the Eagles and the Giants.
Nah, the Giants don't count. I'm not worried about them.
I mean, they had that freaky loss to the Jets.
That's where it's all gone wrong. The Jets have only won one game this season
against the Cowboys.
Right, no, so okay, right. So they went 3-0 up. Did they not then fall to 3-3?
Yes, but they played the Saints, the Packers, and then they had the weird game against the Jets.
Yeah, but they won the last two since.
Yeah.
So they're sitting 5-3. They top of the division at the minute.
Yeah, Steve.
Okay. I still don't see them beating Zimmer's defense though. The way they're playing. All right, I'm maybe being a bit too. It's too late at night. It's way past my bedtime now.
Okay.
Okay. Vikings still go in and win. I'll ease back and say they'll not blow them completely out of the water then, but I still think they'll go and win. Andrew thinks they're going to go in and win as well. You're going to flip on the Cowboys side now because I've shat all over them so much.
I will say that the Cowboys will win in a close game, and the difference maker is that Adam Thielen is out.
Yes, of course they don't have him. Last weekend, and that was the interesting thing about I don't want to. We're nearly at the time limit, so I'm not going to go off topic too much. Diggs also didn't get. I think he only got like one catch or something against the Chiefs. So you had Thielen not playing. You had Diggs not getting anything, but bizarrely, the Vikings still threw up 23 points, and Laquan Treadwell, of all people, was catching balls all over the field. This is a guy who they drafted in the first round, couldn't get a game, and they got rid of him after 4 seasons, only to bring him back on one of these Mickey Mouse deals. Because, once you've cut him and you bring him back, you pay them week to week. So it doesn't matter. Yeah. And he seems to, for whatever reason, actually decided to start playing.
Yeah.
We've got Dalvin Cook as well, which you can't go against too much. I suppose you could argue the Cowboys linebacking core is probably good enough to bolt him up Yeah, front seven of Dallas.
Yeah, it's a tight game. I don't think there's a. I'm saying this is Cowboys by 3 or less.
Oh, right, really close then. So we decided we're not going to do spreads after that 1 week experiment, and that went horribly wrong.
Yeah. You know nothing, Jon Snow.
Yes. Anyway, never mind. Right, so we'll go. So you're going Bucks, Raiders, Cowboys. So all 3 home teams.
Yep.
Andrew is going Cards, Raiders, Vikings, and I will go Bucks, Raiders, Vikings. So we've all got slight differences there. So for at least we can't all get 3 losses.
Yeah.
Again,
Yep.
so that's a good thing, I suppose. There'll be some movement in the numbers next time round.
Yeah.
Right. Any final thoughts? Anything last things you want to say before we wrap it up this week?
No, thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you enjoy the rantings of Steve and I. If you do, then make sure that you like, share, review, comment, all the good stuff that you like to see. And yeah, just thanks.
You've been listening to another great podcast from the Fair City Podcast Network, a group dedicated to connecting and developing podcasts. Check out fcpod.net for more great podcasts and content.